Hello, class. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit before we got started on your capstone project. This is the assignment that is due week 8. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pick a family to kind of model after your capstone. So that's your vignette, right? You're going to pick a family that's either famous, that is literary, like from a novel or a book, or someone from history. You're going to pick a family, and that's going to be who you're going to use for your case study, your case conceptualization of that family. Students will complete the case conceptualization paper by looking through a theoretical lens. Now, in week 4, it talked about using this family and looking through a theoretical lens, just to get you guys practice, right? This is meant to be peer reviewed, all those kinds of things. I'm just going to go ahead and click on the rubric. And I'm just scooting this over here. Okay, so again, theoretical ideas, that's important. You need to make sure you have a theoretical concept that you're evaluating the family through, right? The therapeutic process and relationship. So what's the relationship like with the clinician when using this modality? We've talked about that using other modalities, how some of them are more about aligning with the family, others of them are different, right? And so you're going to be talking about that. What are going to be the techniques and interventions that you'll use based on the model and what's going on with the family? What is the research that's found on using this model, the biblical perspective, and then overall the case conceptualization. So this, and it's supposed to be APA. So the first thing you need to do is pick a family that you feel like you can discuss and talk about. I've given examples of like the Jackson 5, Britney Spears. You could do Joseph from the Bible, David from the Bible. You could think of books, like if you're a reader, maybe you could do Harry Potter and his family. I don't know, the Weasleys. I'm trying to think of other situations. If you like to read, what you could come up, Pride and Prejudice, I'm thinking of a lot of different things, right? But you're using that family as an example to run all this information through. So you're going to find out the history. If you're doing through this particular lens, what are the interventions? What's the techniques? If you were the clinician, what would you need to do? That's how you're analyzing and conceptualizing. So I hope that's helpful for you. I think people are a little lost on that part. If you go back to learning activities week 1, it is discussed on what you need to do to begin kind of the paper. And so go back, read that section. That might be helpful for you. There's just some prep and trying to help you think and get ready for the paper. But that is due week 8. Okay. So I just wanted to let you know about that. So we're going to be talking about cognitive behavioral therapy used with couples and families. So this roots in behaviorism, CBT. My thoughts turn into my behaviors that turn into my beliefs. Obviously, CBT stands for cognitive behavioral therapy. And so it's kind of a teaching, like the idea of teaching the clients what's going on. That's kind of the technique that the therapist takes. Key principles are reinforcement and consistency. You can see this a lot, how this would be used with parenting, which is huge with parenting, is being able to be consistent. So there is things like parent training, teaching compliance and socialization, improving parental requests, monitoring and tracking, creating a a contingent environment, and 5-minute work chore. Okay, Gottman's a big advocate in this. There's a lot of Gottman books. That's one that's probably the most popular. And then 4 steps to the process. You do have assessment. What is the behavior we're targeting, right? Educate and replace and retrain. So we want to identify problematic behavior. We want to try to change it, right? We see this a lot in ABA, things of that nature. Educate probably parents, maybe even child, on what the problem with that behavior is. And then what are we going to change it with? Like, what are we going to do instead? So instead of hitting your brother, what can we do instead? We can do a deep breathing technique, or maybe we go and punch a pillow, things of that nature. It's like we need to change it, but also we need to replace it or figure out like a coping skill for that behavior. So the therapist can be a directive, educator, and expert. Empathy in CBT is used to build rapport, right? Like, I feel you, I understand. I think with CBT, it's really easy for people to break it down and have it be a thing that can be understanding for lots of different types of people. It's not, the jargon is not really complicated or hard to understand. And I think it makes sense. Like when you're like, oh, I want to target this behavior, we need to replace this behavior, it kind of makes sense. And this is something I think people can utilize on their own without a clinician once they kind of get the tools and the techniques down, which is where people find success, right? So what is the problem? We want to get baseline functioning, the ABC theory, what I told you, our thoughts turn into our behaviors, which turn into our beliefs. We're looking at core beliefs, how the family dynamic is, what the couples dynamic is if we're doing couples therapy, trying to find measurable and attainable goals. We want to find something that works for everybody, that makes everybody happy, or at least is like a good place to start. Yeah, and we want to get people to have some assignments that they can practice at home and hopefully see progress. You can do the option of having a written contract with clients as a way to kind of get them to buy in. I think with family therapy and especially with couples therapy, buy-in can be sometimes really hard because someone's already checked out. And so that could be a way to have someone be committed and bought in. You know, we talk about things like classical conditioning, like Pavlov's dog, right? You ring the bell and the dog salivates, that whole situation. And so not to say that kids are like dogs, but like there's some things like that with kids. We're trying to condition them to react like we do that with potty training often. Like you get an M&M if you go pee-pee in the potty. The goal is that when you realize you need to go potty, that you're no longer needing the reward in order to go potty, that you can just go potty on your own. We do things like that in life, right? Token economy, things of that nature. And so, food is the unconditional stimulus, unconditioned stimulus. Salivation is the unconditioned response, right? I see food, I get hungry, which then makes my mouth salivate, or I'm like, oh, that looks good. And so the goal was for the Pavlov's dog, right, is like the food is the unconditional stimulus, and then the bell was the conditioned stimulus. So the goal being that when they hear the bell, they would salivate because they know food's coming. Okay. So these are the kinds of things that we can do with behavior techniques to kind of change behavior. We see this a lot in classroom settings. We see this a lot with ABA, with some like autism type work where we're trying to help with behaviors, especially problematic behaviors in certain scenarios. So not something that's very uncommon, something that all of you may be very familiar with. Shaping, reward successive small steps, rewarding behavior in the direction of the desired behavior using small incremental steps, shaping behavior. For example, you're trying to get your kid to do something, you want to reward for the behavior. We don't want to start off at like the $1 million toy, right? We want to start small. We have a family we're working with right now on some like conduct disorder type behavior with their child, and family has a tendency to lavish the child with things, and then it's like, well, they're good for a little bit, and then once that newness of whatever that thing is wears off, then they go right back. And it's like we had to kind of instruct them, don't start off with giving them the puppy, like take a step back. Like where are you going to go if you give them like the number one thing, right? So we have to take those kinds of things in consideration if we're, you have to walk through that with parents. Positive reinforcement or reward. Rewards are desired behaviors by adding something desirable. Negative reinforcement rewards desired behaviors by removing something undesirable. Positive punishment reduces undesirable behavior by adding something undesirable, like extra chores, probably a timeout, something of that nature. And negative punishment reduces undesirable behavior by removing something desirable. Okay. So I want this outcome, like going out with my friends. Now I can't go. Right. So those are the kinds of things that parents can utilize to kind of get outcomes that they want or change behavior. Consistency, the more consistent the reinforcement or punishment, the quicker the learning. I would say with parenting, consistency is probably one of the most difficult things to do on a regular basis because it's so exhausting. However, it is so necessary to be consistent with our kids. And it's so necessary to be consistent, because if you aren't, like, they're not going to take your words seriously. And so we can make a lot of threats, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And we can get lazy sometimes in that, or just be tired and exhausted and worn down. And then we're not consistent. And as a result of our lack of consistency, then we're not taken seriously. And our word isn't as meaningful, I think, as it should be. Being consistent is so draining. However, the outcome, like, once kids know, like, I mean what I say what I mean, especially kids who are strong-willed, like, we don't need to have a conversation about this that's 2 hours long. You're a child, but you need to know when mom says something, that's what mom means. And that's where we miss a lot of things with parenting. Like, parents say something, but it means something else because I don't follow through. I'm the grown-up. I'm the one that has to follow through. And we get frustrated, but it's also like, what am I doing wrong to cause this scenario, right? And that takes some self-reflection, right? But it is tiring and taxing, but it is beneficial in the long run. It's just like if you think of a weight loss journey. If I want to lose weight, but I work out sporadically or eat healthy sporadically, I'm not going to really get the outcome I want. Whereas if I stay consistent doing something, I'm going to probably get better results. Or when you think about, like doing your schoolwork or whatever, if you're sporadic about it, it's like, yeah, you might do okay, but if you are consistent about it, one, you're probably less stressed and you're gonna have a better outcome. And there's a lot of things like that with life, with routine, with structure. Some people, that's not their strength, right? So you have to teach that to yourself. Like, it's a learned behavior. But definitely, something that kids need in order to thrive, I think, and to work through behavioral issues. We want to encourage people to stay positive, increase compliments and expressions of appreciation. I know, like, when my kid, like, does something that I really appreciate, I always try to, like, say, thank you so much. That was made the car ride so much easier without you kicking the back of my seat the whole time. I know it sounds silly, but it's like, no, I really want to express, like, I'm truly thankful. Like, I don't like to hear yelling and screaming the whole car ride home. Like, it's like my least favorite thing to do. Having those kinds of talks with them can be very, very helpful. Contingencies and contracting. Contingencies promote new behavior by creating a contingency that must be met to receive a desired reward. So you can get this if this is done, right? Like, it's contingent on it. Like, we talk about those things in the housing market, right? You can get the house, but it's contingent on the other house selling, right? Same kind of thing. Privileges. Parents can use contingency contracting with children that detail how privileges will be earned or lost. You get all your chores done, then you can play the VR. You get all your chores done, you can play the Switch. You don't do those things, you will not, right? And so those are the kinds of things parents can use. There's obviously a token economy. We talk about that in school or sometimes at home with potty charts or behavior charts. You get rewarded, like, again, small things like a sticker or something, and that's to motivate you to get to the outcome. And you can kind of, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you can get the token taken away, whether that's the sticker, a coin. Teachers have a lot of different methodologies for this to use it in their classrooms. But yes, it's something that's very common, very used. I know people will be like, well, I don't feel like I should have to reward my kid to do what they want. Agreed. You shouldn't always have to reward them. However, like with the going potty, you obviously can tell I'm dealing with potty training right now. But to go potty, yes, it might start off with a sticker at M&M, but the goal is eventually your kid isn't going to go potty in the potty just because they're getting an M&M or a sticker. It's going to be because they realize, I got to go and this is where I go, right? It's like that training. Sometimes with pets, a dog, you'll have potty pads and then you lead the potty pad till the door and then the dog learns to go potty outside. These are the things that maybe motivate someone to get in a pattern of behavior till they start doing it on their own, right? So behavior exchange and quid pro quo. Mutual behavior exchanges help partners negotiate relational rules. If you make dinner, I'll do the dishes. That's helpful with roles because that's where a lot of conflict sometimes can be. Balance with more effective techniques to avoid framing marriages as a business deal. So it's not that we're just transactional. Giving versus receiving. Have each partner select a behavior to give rather than to rather than have each ask for what she wants. Like, how can I give him or her wants? How can I give to you versus like this is what I want from you. It's just a reframe. It sounds better. It's a way to kind of try to meet each other's needs. And that's just a big part of stuff with couples, right? It's like comparison. Well, I do this, you do that. A lot of back and forth it can be. And so trying to retrain how we're asking for the things that we need so that we get our needs met is important. So trying to have positive communication, staying on the topic. What are the behavior problems? How is this impacting the couple or the family? Taking ownership and responsibility on your participation in the problem. We aren't mind readers, and we shouldn't be abusing anybody in any sort of way, whether that be physically, mentally, emotionally, any of those things. We shouldn't be doing them. Okay. In session, teaching clients psychological and relational principles about problems and how to best handle them. So, you could have them watch a movie, read a book, challenge them in some way to learn and to grow about the material. Maybe if you have a workbook you want them to do, or worksheets you want to do, or journaling things that you want them to do, all meant to help them grow as people, to be able to implement what you're asking them to do in session. I think knowledge is power. I will say that over and over again. The more people know and understand, the better the outcome is going to be. When you have clients that finally have that buy-in and they're seeing hopefully positive progress, then it's very exciting, because then they're more motivated. They're like, oh, I know this ends up working out great, so this is what we're going to do. So anyhow, I hope this information is all helpful to you guys. Cognitive behavioral theory is something that is very commonly used. Mindfulness is very popular right now, right? Being present. And so mindfulness is all about, there's a book, now I'm going blank on it. It's like about third wave cognitive behavioral therapy, which is mindfulness. I think it's called Act Made Simple. Act, yeah. And the whole idea is, if our problems are right here in front of our face, we can't see people, we can't touch people. It's like we're so consumed with everything right here. But if we're able to put this down in our lap and not be blinded, we're able to move around, we're able to function at a higher level. The problem may not be gone, but we're able to be more free from it, right? And mindfulness is a lot about that, like being present, being the here and now. Not be somewhere else. Oftentimes when we're caught up in our headspace, we're not in the present, we're in the past, or we're in the future. And we need to be in the here and now, so we can utilize our senses, sight, sound, touch, taste, to get us back in the here and now. Because when we're in the past or in the future, we're usually spiraling a little bit, which again, we're having scenarios or conversations or arguments with people that aren't even things that are happening right now in this moment. And so mindfulness is really useful because it helps us stay in the moment. And as we know, in our culture, it is really easy to be distracted and be caught off guard by all these things that are going on. And so anyways, so great techniques and tools with mindfulness, not only with couples, but I think you could utilize some of that too with families. And it's something you will definitely utilize with individuals. CBT is very common with individuals as well, because again, the practicality of our thoughts. So our A turns into our behaviors, which then turns into our beliefs. So our activating thought turns into our behavior, which then turns into our cognition. A nice little triangle there. And we can get caught up in really negative thinking, and then we have negative beliefs about ourselves, and then negative behavior comes out of that, right? So if I think I'm bad, then I'm going to behave bad, and then I am bad. So let's change that, right? I don't have to be bad. So if I don't have to be bad, then maybe I'll make better choices, and then I don't believe I'm bad. And a lot of times kids can even get caught up in that too. Okay. Well, I hope, again, like I said, you guys have a great week. Thank you so much for all your hard work. I've enjoyed looking at your papers, and we are almost there. Okay. Take care.